So in this one, we have that Kevin is 3 times as old as Daniel. 4 years ago, Kevin was 5 times as old as Daniel. And we need to know how old is Daniel now. So, like the last one, we're going to find Daniel's age. So D is, again, Daniel's current age, since we want to know how old he is right now. But in this one, we're also talking about Kevin. So we could also define a variable for Kevin. We'll call that K. So K is Kevin's current age. Now, we don't directly need to know what that is to answer the question, but to be able to figure out Daniel's current age along the way, we will have to know what Kevin's current age is. So let's see if we can figure out the equations here. So let's start with this first piece of information. Kevin is 3 times as old as Daniel. Notice the verb is, that verb to be, that's our equal sign. So it's saying Kevin, and this again is talking about his current age. So K for Kevin equals 3 times as old as Daniel. And again, it's Daniel's current age, and times tells us that we're multiplying. So Kevin is 3 times Daniel's age. And this should make sense if you put in a number. Like if Daniel is 7, then 7 times 3 is 21. Kevin would be 21, which is 3 times older. So this equation makes sense. And let's look at the next sentence. So now we're saying 4 years ago, Kevin was 5 times as old as Daniel. Notice the verb to be. That's going to separate both expressions in our equation. That's our equal sign. And this one's tricky because we're talking about 4 years ago. So remember that the variables are defining the current age. So if we're talking about 4 years ago, then that would be Kevin's current age minus 4. So that signifies 4 years ago. And then it's equal to 5 times, so multiplication, as old as Daniel. But again, this is 4 years ago. So it's Daniel's current age minus 4. So a lot of times you'll see this when we're looking several years back or maybe even several years in the future. And you just have to remember that our variables are defined as the current age. So you can adjust that as needed. So now we have our 2 equations and we can solve them. 2 equations and 2 variables is solvable. Now, let's use the substitution method. We already know what K is in terms of D. Since K is equal to 3D, we can just replace this K here with 3D since they're equal. So let's do that. I'm going to rewrite it down here that we have 3D, that's just K now, minus 4 equals 5, and I'm going to distribute this. So 5 times D, or 5D, and 5 times minus 4 would be minus 20. Now, we've got variables on both sides. Let's put them on the side with more, this side with 5D. So I'm going to subtract 3D on each side. And so I get that minus 4 is 2D minus 20. And let's add 20 on each side so that we can get D by itself. So minus 4 plus 20, that's 16. And we've got 2D. And lastly, let's divide by 2. So we find that Daniel's current age is 8. And again, this is what we think it is. But at this point, we're not sure. We have to plug it in to make sense of everything. So first of all, Kevin is 3 times as old as Daniel. So if Daniel's 8, then Kevin's going to be 3 times that. Kevin will be 24 years old. Now it's saying that 4 years ago, Kevin was 5 times as old as Daniel. So these are their current ages. So let's say 4 years ago, Daniel would be 4 years old and Kevin would be 20 years old. And it's saying that Kevin was 5 times as old as Daniel, but 4 times 5 is 20. So this makes sense. And since all of this makes sense, we know for sure that these are the correct ages. So to answer the question, how old is Daniel now? He is currently 8 years old. And let's keep going with these. You need a lot of practice. There's several different scenarios. So this problem is a little bit different. We have that Ben is 30 years old and Daniel is 2 years old. So I'm just going to write that in, that Ben is 30 and Daniel is 2. And they're asking, how many years will it take until Ben is only 3 times as old as Daniel? So we want to think, what are we looking for here? We're looking for how many years it's going to take until Ben is 3 times as old as Daniel. And the thing you're trying to find, that's what you want to define as your variable. So this one, maybe we can just call x. So x is the number of years until Ben is only 3 times as old as Daniel. So x is that amount of years that we're looking for. So with this variable being defined, now we can look at that piece of information, this sentence here. Ben is only 3 times as old as Daniel after some amount of years passes. So let's try and make an equation from this. Notice the verb is, that's going to be our equal sign. And we're talking about Ben's current age plus a certain amount of years. So we're going to rewrite this. Since Ben's current age is 30, we can just write that in. And we're going to add some amount of years. And then this will be equal to, the verb is, 3 times as old as Daniel. So 3 times, we're multiplying. And again, it's Daniel's current age, which is 2, plus whatever that amount of years is. And now you can see we have an equation involving just the variable x, which we can solve for. So to solve this, let's first distribute. So you get 30 plus x is 6 plus 3x. And let's move all the x's to the right side. So we'll subtract x on each side. And we want to move the numbers to the left, so we can subtract 6 on each side. And when we do this, we get that 24 is 2x. And then to solve for x, let's divide by 2. So that x is 12. And we think, again, we're not sure yet, we got to check it, but we think that in 12 years, Ben will be exactly 3 times as old as Daniel. So let's add 12 to both of these ages. So we get that 42 is Ben's age in that 12 years, and Daniel's age in 12 years would be 14. But notice it's true that 14 times 3 is 42. So in 12 years, Ben will be exactly 3 times as old as Daniel. So the number of years we're looking for was 12. So you can put 12 into the box here.